Part 33G, God on the Flat Earth. Okay, before we get to the small scale, the medium-sized scale, and the large scale, we're going to talk about monotheistic and polytheistic. Monotheistic means that it's one God, and poly means many. Polytheistic meaning many gods. Now, Christianity has been telling people since the beginning that they are a monotheistic religion, meaning that they worship one God. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter if it's monotheistic or polytheistic, but um, Christianity, with their God the Father, their God the Son, and their gods, the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost, does not equal one. That's a polytheistic religion. It is not monotheistic, it's polytheistic. Okay? Now, in the Old Testament, they're very clear. And this is from the Hebrew Torah. They're very clear that there's more than one God that they worship. And you can start back in Genesis when the Elohim are creating mankind, and they say, "Let us make man in our image." All right. So let us is plural. They're making man in our image. Our is plural too. So those would be the Elohim, and those are a group of people that have the tech to manipulate genes and make the slave race, humankind, that they needed to colonize this plane. So in the book of Exodus, when Moses is on the mount and he's talking to the burning bush and he receives the Ten Commandments, right? The Ten Commandments, I don't remember what order it goes in, but one of the main ones is, "Thou shalt not take another God before me." Why would that God worry about humans taking other gods before him? Because there was other gods to choose from. Okay, and that's what we're going to get into here. On the small scale, there was a lot of politics and scheming going on back then, and there were some people that wanted to use the human race for their benefit and others that didn't. But yeah, it's very specific, even in the Ten Commandments. "Thou shalt not take another God before me," because he's a jealous and wrathful God. So yeah, there's another example of a polytheistic, multiple gods that were around. So mankind had choices back then. When they were in direct relations with the Elohim or the creators of our genetic mutated selves, um, there was people, vying for the supreme power and the ability to control the slaves, and just like today, those beings are physical beings just like us. They just have better technology, and they're not worth worshiping, because that's like somebody worshiping a high-ranking politician or a general or anything like that. They're just entities like us, that were just have better technology. So you know, worshiping gods for humans was about finding answers that they couldn't um, solve, and so when these MCOs happened, there was a lot of questions and a lot of people saying, what the hell? And, that thing that I see, the things that created us, they have more power than us, therefore they must be worshiped. Well, people can worship whatever they want. It's not what I'm going to worship. Never have, never will. Not going to worship people because they had high tech laboratories where they could do gene splicing. And then, right now we're going to, start talking about on the small scale. And the small scale is about the gods that people worship on the small scale are those humanoid type creatures that created us. They created us, therefore they own us, and they believe that we should worship them and do their bidding because they gave us life. Well, they did not give us life. So the Elohim modified our existence and created a modified species, but they did not give us life. So on the small scale, it's all about the things that made us. And I call them masters. People can, Elohim, whatever word you want to come up for these humanoid type figures, but they are no gods, and they just have better tech than everybody else, and they're just colonizing um, from plane to plane, and that's their existence. All right, they're never going to get out. They're always going to be on that small scale because that's what they are. That's their purpose in life. Now on to my favorite subject ever, plasma. Okay, on the interplanetary scale, and what 99.9999 all percent of all religions worship as the god to fear, it's plasma. Now, plasma is very interesting because of the fact that depending on where these cultures were, they have a different perspective of how they see the plasma. So that's why you get varying accounts, and why some will say it looks like this and others will say it looks like that because of distance from the central axis at the North Pole. If you're closer, you're going to see more of it. If you're further away, you're going to see less of it. So there's going to be varying different depictions of that plasma. But you can call that plasma whatever you want. But that is what the Christian Bible, that is what the Torah, that is what the Quran, that is what Hindu text, that's what Quetzalcoatl is in Mayan um, theology is. It's what everybody is talking about and is what everybody feared in the past because this thing came and it shook and uprooted their world every so often. And it was always about trying to appease this God. And of course, you guys all know you can't do that because it's not a God, it's plasma. Now, the people that say, oh, well, uh, plasma has consciousness. No, plasma does not have consciousness. Plasma does what it does because of physics, not because it's sitting there thinking, oh, gee, I'm going to go do this now. No, plasma is a physical thing and it adheres to the laws of electricity and magnetism, right? It is not a conscious being. It is a force that does what it does. So why did people worship this as their god? Because it wreaked havoc on their world. Okay. Now there's depictions of or descriptions of it as either being good or bad, depending on your perspective. If you had a shitty ass life and you were a slave and you were getting whipped every day and you were just hating every day of your life, and then all of a sudden this thing came and it uprooted the society and civilization that enslaved you, you're going to look at it as a good thing. If you were living life cushy and plush and everything was just awesome and you were eating grapes by the frickin' fountain every day and this thing came, you would look at it as the devil or a negative thing because it ruined your great way of life. All right, so that's why plasma can be God and devil, even in the same collection of books we call the Bible. Okay, so every plane in this neuron has this plasma MCO event. So this God isn't just worshipped here, it's worshipped throughout the neuron that we live. So is this God? This is a God that people worshipped throughout human history and throughout the interplanetary history of this neuron. Is it a God in the sense of what we all kind of think about, this magical thing that's just there and it can speak to us and talk to us and everything else? No, this is not that. This is the one where it's about destruction, death, revenge, jealousy. This is the God that they're referring to when it comes to that. And so plasma is my favorite subject, and it is a God that was worshipped by pretty much most cultures, either worshiped or revered or feared. But it's not a conscious being, and it's not sitting there, recording your sins and worried about that, or coming and doing this because of human sins. No, that's not what this thing is. It's worshipped as a god, but it's not a conscious being whatsoever. So on to the large scale, as the cell inside of a body, and I have coined and named that body Bob. So Bob is a god. Yes, the body that you live in is the God because it is your true creator. It is the one who made the intelligent design of the DNA for you to function. Now, it is no different than the things inside of your body and inside of that body of you. All those cells, the white, the red blood cells, everything that works and functions, it sees you as its God because you gave it the design for it to function. So when you are no longer, then all those things that worship you as a God are no longer also. But the body itself is the God because it is what gives the design for everything inside of that body to function, to live, and to die. So there's a lot of things that go into the cellular level on how things function. But the most important part in the area of the body of Bob that we live is water. Water is how memory and information is retained and transmitted throughout the body of Bob. And it's no different than inside of you. That water is the memory, and it holds all memory in the large scale all the way down to the small scale. So within you, you have zillions, undecillion amount of things that are trying to figure out where they are, why they are, who they are, and the rest. And they worship things down there, but they also are connected with you, and that's the connection that every cell within the body it lives is trying to connect with. Now, we were artificially created to detach us from that connection. That connection is what we all search for. That body of Bob and us connecting with it and us doing what we were designed to do through our DNA, not what we were designed to do as slaves for the Elohim and or a plasma EMCO that has no bearing on us whatsoever, besides the fact that it cleans off that cell when the changeover happens. See, the real teachings of Jesus is that the connection and your disassociation with the body that you were created for and in. He came in the flesh. Well, guess what? He knew, and he tried telling all of his followers too, that it wasn't just him, it was everybody. Jesus wasn't special. He understood what was going on, but he understood that we were all part of the larger body. Now, how much of that he understood, I don't know, but he understood the connection part of that larger body and how we were disconnected from that. So Jesus had a secret that he knew that he was part of that larger body. Now they refer to it as Father, but that's not correct. All right, and this is pretty common in Hindu teachings. Hindus believe that they are part of that God. They are just, small parts of that God. And that's a pretty profound thing to understand through this all, right? That the world, the big world that you live in that body that you live in, you are absolutely created for a specific design for that body before the altering by the Elohim. That conflict within us all is that conflict of trying to do the functions that we were created to do by the body of Bob, and the conflicting information and instincts that we get when we are doing the bidding of the Elohim as the slaves genetically modified to do their bidding. Okay, so did we evolve from something like they teach us in schools and science? No, we didn't. The design was already there. The intelligent design was there when Bob was created. When Bob was created, now his genes have specific criteria for making cells in whichever part of the body. That's where the intelligent design comes from. It's in the DNA code as life procreates and makes itself. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, okay, well, is there something, bigger than, outside of Bob? Of course there is. Of course there is. Bob lives in a, not saying he's a human, I'm just calling him Bob. That thing lives with a whole bunch of other like beings that it is. So let's say it's a octopus looking like creature, and it's at the bottom of some ocean, and well, guess what? It's not the only one. There's thousands, millions, billions of those creatures, and each one of those creatures, just like every creature down here, is God to everything inside of that body. So then it begs the question, well, what was the first life form that started all the DNA, and what created the DNA? Yeah, nobody's ever figuring that out. Okay, lost history, lost knowledge, lost everything. The scales, the Matryoshka doll effect of the size of all this, that's never going to be known. Okay, so that's it. That's the different levels and what was worshipped, what is worshipped, what was revered, what was feared, and all the gods that have that name in it. Now, in the Bible itself, there are numerous names for the different gods. and those aren't just different titles, those are different names, okay? Because they're describing different things and different entities and different humanoid type people. So on the small scale, you know, you were created from mixing and matching different DNA to get the desired outcome that the Elohim or whatever name you want to put on them. That's the small scale. On the medium scale, in the interplanetary, everybody worships the plasma because the plasma in the MCO comes and wipes out everything. And so it was feared and it was worshipped, good and bad. And on the big scale, the thing that you were really created for and the where your DNA and the intelligent design comes from, that comes from the body that you live in. And it's absolutely no different than the way that your body works, or a squid's body, or an ant's body, or any other living organism. Everything is life. Okay, my next video is going to be after Easter. Okay, and if you guys have been paying attention and going on with what's going on with all the signs and floods and lights and everything else that's going on, um, the preliminary signs and the fall and the collapse of society is forefront on my mind. And I'm going to watch every day as close as I can to make sure that Easter is not a sign that society will collapse, as a preliminary sign for the MCO if it's going to be this coming Christmas. Okay, so Kimberly and I are going to do our thing, and if everything's still up and running after Easter, I will continue the series. Where I go from the series, I don't know yet. I'll take this month and think about it. You know, I can finish off the Moon series really quickly. You know, I know people want me to talk about the stars, so I'll talk about the stars. And you know, there's 1,000 different places I could go. You know, but that's if we have time. So as long as everything is up and running, the next video will be, you know, a couple days after Easter, most likely. All right, so that's all I got, guys. You know, hopefully we make it through Easter and I can continue the series, but I don't have good feelings about what's headed our way. And you know, it's all about when the rest of the people are going to start figuring this out, because it's going to collapse quickly. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later, hopefully. And all right, that's it.